All right, y'all, welcome back to the show. It's Antiwar Radio on Chaos, 95.9 FM in Austin, Texas, streaming live worldwide on the internet at chaosradioaustin.org and at antiwar.com/radio. And our next guest on the show today is Julian Assange. He is the co-founder and public face of last week's most Googled term, Wikileaks. Welcome to the show, Julian. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, I sure appreciate you joining us on the show today.
You're welcome.
All right, so first of all, you're kind of a mysterious character in the media. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
So I'm an Australian. I was born on a little island called Magnetic Island in the Pacific. I've been an activist for a long time, since I was a teenager in Australia. But then in the 90s, I was involved in setting up one of the first ISPs in Australia, a free speech ISP, and writing a book and doing some other forms of journalism, and developing cryptographic systems for human rights workers in Southern America. And then studied physics and mathematics. This is, I suppose, WikiLeaks is an idea that I and some other people had to try and deal with some systemic problems we saw in the media, and an understanding that all decisions that occur in a civilization are based upon what we know. So regardless of your political orientation, we can't have good decisions, good political decisions, good decisions about how civilization is run, unless we have the information that we need about how the world actually works to make those decisions. And we specialize on not just any sort of information, but the sort of information that is suppressed from the historical record and suppressed from the public debate. And by suppressed, I don't mean that people aren't interested in it. I mean that it's classified, or there is an active attempt through the legal system or through violence to prevent journalists reporting it, or prevent whistleblowers coming forward with that information. Because we have seen through our earlier work and my earlier work that suppressed information is suppressed for a reason. Usually that reason is that the people who know it best, the organizations that really understand it, who are sitting on it, who are withholding it, believe that when it is released, there will be a reform effect. There will be a pushback from other organizations and from civil society and from the broader population to do something in response to the release of that information. That's why it is restrained in the first place. So by selectively going after repressed information and getting it out to the public, we can very efficiently produce reform.
Now, I read a pretty negative piece about you in the Mother Jones, but there was something very interesting in there that I really liked, that they quoted you as saying, and that was about the influence of Daniel Ellsberg and his leaking of the Pentagon Papers, and how that helped shape your worldview toward this kind of activity.
Yes. Well, I mean, that article is very odd. However, yes, Daniel Ellsberg, who I have spoken to, is certainly an influence, and maybe that's a sort of classic case of an example where by getting this suppressed information out to the public, people can look at things in a new way, and certain possibilities come up in the air. And also the courage is contagious. Daniel Ellsberg is fond of this phrase, and I am as well. In response to Ellsberg leaking the Pentagon Papers, there are a number of other sources that came forward, encouraged by his successful example. And that's something that we try and promote. We're not about creating martyrs. We're not about getting people to go on the run from the FBI like Ellsberg did, although some people are into that drama. Rather, we're about enabling people to continue on in their jobs, continue on in their positions, but still act according to their conscience.
Okay, now let's get into obviously the big news, which is the collateral murder video, as it's titled. And this is from July 12th, 2007, right?
Yeah, this concerns an event in New Baghdad, July 12th, 2007, during the middle of General Petraeus' surge of additional U.S. forces into that area. It takes place just after 10 a.m., 10:18 a.m. So the backing story is that there was small arms fire heard at 9:50 a.m. somewhere in the vicinity of New Baghdad by U.S. forces. There's no record of it actually hitting U.S. forces, but it was heard. It was the location of that small arms fire was not identified, and the person was not identified. In response, Apache helicopters were asked to sort of circle around the area, which they did so, and 28 minutes later, the lead Apache, which is called Crazy Horse, came across a square which had a crowd in it of about 20 people loosely milling around, not in one cohesive group. And the Apache sees two Reuters journalists, it doesn't recognize them as such, carrying just their bags nonchalantly, walking down the street where the local population, some of the locals are leading them to photograph things that are interesting. So the Apache then mistakes these camera bags for weapons. And then it observes two other people in the crowd who appears that they may actually have weapons. But nonetheless, that's not unusual for Baghdad at this time. It's a very dangerous place. And they're not showing any sort of hostility. It then asks for permission to engage on those individuals, and around 9 have sort of gotten together into a slightly tighter group, where they are looking at the photograph taken by Namir Noor Eldin, the 22-year-old Reuters photographer. It then attempts to kill all those people with 30mm cannon fire from an altitude of around 1,000 meters. It's clear that the people in the crowd at various times have seen these helicopters, and they're not hiding from them. Namir Noor Eldin runs from the initial group of 6 people who were killed, and lands into a garbage dump. Sort of tried to take cover there, but he is nonetheless killed deliberately by more 30mm cannon fire. And his assistant and driver, Saeed Shumra, is left wounded. He's the only person left alive from this initial encounter, and he is crawling on the curb, barely able to get onto his hands and knees. There's no one else around, and the pilots are going, well, he's there, but, we just need him to pick up a weapon. Come on, buddy, pick up a weapon. All we need you to do is pick up a weapon, although there's no sign of any weapons around, because they understand that according to the rules of engagement, they can't shoot a wounded man who is not